సంపద పంపిణీలో సమాన హక్కులు కల్పించడం కన్నా సమాన అవకాశాల కల్పన ద్వారా ఆర్థిక తారతమ్యాలు తగ్గించవచ్చని న్యూయార్క్లోని న్యూ స్కూల్ ఆఫ్ సోషల్ రీసెర్చ్ ఆర్థిక శాస్త్ర ఆచార్యులు సంజయ్ రెడ్డి అభిప్రాయపడ్డారు. గ్రామీణ ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థకు చుక్కానిలా నిలిచిన సహకార రంగాన్ని మరింత ప్రోత్సహించాల్సి ఉందని చెప్పారు. నాగార్జున విశ్వవిద్యాలయం వేదికగా జరుగుతున్న ఇండియన్ ఎకనామిక్ అసోసియేషన్ సమావేశాల్లో పాల్గొనేందుకు వచ్చిన ఆయన ఈటీవీతో ప్రత్యేకంగా మాట్లాడారు.
గుంటూరు నాగార్జున విశ్వవిద్యాలయం వేదికగా జరుగుతున్న ఇండియన్ ఎకనామిక్ అసోసియేషన్ సమావేశాల్లో పాల్గొనేందుకు న్యూ స్కూల్ ఆఫ్ సోషల్ రీసెర్చ్ నుంచి అసోసియేట్ ప్రొఫెసర్ సంజయ్ రెడ్డి వచ్చారు. ఎకనామిక్ ఇన్ఈక్వాలిటీస్ ఆర్ ద మేజర్ కన్సర్న్ ఇన్ ప్రెజెంట్ డేస్. India is facing the same?
India is one of the countries in the world which has had a very sharp increase in inequality. Maybe not the biggest increase, but it has had a very sharp increase in inequality. And it is a great concern, not necessarily because inequality matters in itself, but what it means is that all the benefits of growth, all the benefits of development are not being distributed in the society in the way that it could be.
You observed any best practices in India, particularly in some states, which is called the developed states? In distribution level, is there any best practices in India? Do you have any observations?
It's a good question. I think that in India there's a very strong tradition of cooperatives, which is something that we don't talk about very much nowadays, but we should go back to it and look at it more. For example, dairy cooperatives, which have been highly successful in many parts of India, have been tremendously valuable in giving opportunities to farmers to branch out, to do something that's more remunerative, through which they can earn more and be self-sufficient and also have a stable source of income. But a cooperative, Amul cooperatives and other dairy cooperatives in India, of course, are very well known, including here in Andhra Pradesh, is something that provides people with marketing, it provides people with technical skills, it brings them together so that they can be more effective as a group. I think that this is something which we should pay more attention to. We should not only be talking about corporations, corporate houses, and their contribution to the national economy, but we have to think on more diverse lines, because India has a problem of employment. It has a problem of livelihoods. We were talking today about how the share of national income in agriculture has fallen very sharply to around that, and at the same time the population in agriculture has fallen, but much less sharply. So it's still the population share that's actually reliant upon agriculture for income is more in the 50 to 60% range. So this is, of course, causing very sharp rural to urban inequalities, but it also means that there is no corporate solution to providing livelihoods for some people. There is a need to have a development strategy after bifurcation, and as you know, one of the concerns is that a lot of the productive activity which was previously located in Hyderabad has to be also developed elsewhere in the state. There's a lot of focus on developing a capital city which can become a magnet for some of those activities, especially those things that are exporting services, IT services, for example, to the international market, for which Hyderabad became very well known. And that is certainly something very desirable for Andhra Pradesh to do. It can build upon its existing strengths to do that. And certainly it has a pool of human resources which is potentially very valuable in that regard. But that having been said, it still remains a state where there's a very large agricultural population which cannot benefit from that directly. And without a conscious, intentional process of distributing opportunities in the productive system, not just by taxing the resources that are generated and spending them, but by making people productive wherever they already happen to live. Without doing that, without investing in their productivity and in more diverse sectors of the economy, the strategy of the state might be unbalanced, too unbalanced.
In your presentation, you said that India is concentrating on reaching the target of the inflation decline at the cost of the employment generation. what do you actually mean that?
Well, as you know, and as Mr. Rangarajan pointed to, there has been some shift in India toward what is called a inflation targeting regime. What this means is that the Reserve Bank of India is going to focus almost entirely upon keeping inflation within certain bounds. I do not think that it is always desirable to focus on inflation because there are also other goals that central banks ought to pursue. Mr. Rangarajan himself mentioned one of them, which is what is called asset price stability, which has to do with the fact that if there is too much cheap money floating around, that will tend to cause the prices of property, the prices of shares and so forth to increase, maybe to an unstable or unsustainable degree. It forms what's called a bubble, and that is not desirable.
In your view, is demonetization would affect the growth rate of Indian economy?
Well, I was an opponent of demonetization. In fact, the very first day that demonetization was announced, I wrote a piece which criticized demonetization. And of course, many other people have criticized it. Has it had an impact on growth? That is very difficult to say, because in order to answer that, one would need to know what growth would have been in the absence of demonetization. Now, to the extent that India was apparently on a higher growth path, it had higher measured growth before demonetization took place, it's certainly plausible that demonetization contributed to the lowering of growth. I do not think that that's necessarily the biggest issue, because a year from now or 2 years from now, the impact of demonetization may have disappeared. But the real issue is that this was an example of a government policy which caused a lot of hardship for many people. It had very weak economic justification. It probably failed, may even have been counterproductive in terms of its economic goals. And its broader goals are also very suspect.
సంపద సమాన పంపిణీ కాకుండా అవకాశాలను సమానంగా అందరికీ అవకాశాలు కల్పించేలా ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థ ఉండాలని సంజయ్ రెడ్డి సూచిస్తూ ఉన్నారు. దేశంలో నోట్ల రద్దు వ్యవహారం అనుకున్నంత సత్ఫలితాలను ఇవ్వలేదని, దీని ప్రభావం 2-3 ఏళ్లలో తగ్గినప్పటికీ భారతదేశ ఆర్థిక విధానాలు మరింత క్రియాశీలకంగా ఉండాల్సిన విషయాన్ని ఇది సూచిస్తుందని ఆయన చెప్తున్నారు. ఇక నూతనంగా ఏర్పడ్డ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్రానికి సంబంధించి అన్ని వనరులను, రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్నటువంటి అన్ని వనరులను, రాష్ట్రం యొక్క ఉత్పాదకతను సమర్థంగా వినియోగించుకోవాలని సూచిస్తున్నారు. గుంటూరు నుంచి కెమెరామెన్ కేశవ్తో నాగేశ్వరరావు, ఈటీవీ న్యూస్.